we're far away from here, even though you should be closer, right? So you can notice the circle. It's like, I think part of healing is, and growth and development is informed by the circle in Native American tradition. But I want to say this because we created this as a circle. A young Puerto Rican artist from New York came, who is a very prominent mosaic artist, and he made this mosaic. And the mosaic is the map of Puerto Rico with elements of Puerto Rican culture. So here you have the ceviche, which is from the Taino Indians. This is a sacred symbol of the Tainos in Puerto Rico. Here you have the coqui, the almost coquis are native to Puerto Rico. There are 14 species of them. And if you go to Puerto Rico and you're not used to them, you will not sleep at night. Because they're different species and they're constantly singing to each other. And they're also almost like an orchestra. And so you gotta get used to coquis if you ever go to Puerto Rico. Then here you have a Mexicante mask. This is from the African tradition in Puerto Rico. If you go to certain parts of Puerto Rico, you will particularly in Loíza Aldea, there's a festival, El Festival de Santiago, on June 28th, and that is a festival in which you think you are in the western coast of Africa. The people dress like Africans, they use masks like Africans. That's part of who we are as Puerto Ricans. We're a mixture. Just we were talking, the great Mexican poet and novelist Jose Vasconcelos coined the phrase, the cosmic race, to refer to who we are as Latinos, right? And so, this map, with all of these elements, were created here, but in the form of a circle. Why a circle? Because Jens Jensen, who actually made his offices here, was deeply inspired by the prairie and by the people that were in the prairie, the native people here. And so if you visit, one of his great works is the Garfield Conservatory, but also some of his works dot the landscape of the Chicago Park districts. And they are gardens. And every garden that he designed had what he called the circle ring. And you can sit around the circle rings, and the idea was that you could read, that you could reflect upon nature, that you could immerse yourself in the natural world and reflect on its meaning and the messages that the natural world sends to us. And so we created this circle, this permanent piece in a circle form, so it could also invite us to reflect on Native American thought, Native American spirituality, Native American lives right here in this area. They were wiped out and their historical memory has almost been lost. But we wanted to preserve it. And so in this building, we wanted to bring our inspiration. This is our inspiration. All of the exhibits that are here that I hope you will see are our inspiration as Puerto Rican. There's the best example of some of the best artists of Puerto Rico: Antonio Martorell, Ramon Frade, Jaime Carrero. They're all here. But a museum is worthless if it's a museum. A museum must have meaning. Many years ago, I had a wonderful experience, and that was to do a symposium with a very famous man, Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl, in 1971, I was at Loyola University, and Viktor Frankl was brought to Loyola, and I did a weekend symposium with him. And Viktor Frankl writes a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in this book, he uses a quote from somebody who's not very, some people consider infamous, a German philosopher by the name of Nietzsche. And Nietzsche takes this quote and says, "He who has a why to live for can meet almost anyhow. His book, Man's Search for Meaning. He who has a why to live for can meet almost anyhow. And what he does is he explores the lives and the problems that Jews in the concentration camp confronted. And he began to try to make sense of the horrors of the Holocaust. And then he begins to analyze the behavior of different people in the camp. And he realizes that there were three groups of people in the concentration camp. One, people who would give up and literally commit suicide and die. People who were co-opted and they were able to be agents of the SS guard, and usually they were the ones who took the people to the gas chamber, right? It was not an SS guard, it was usually another Jew taking a Jew to the to the chamber. And they were rewarded by giving them their clothes, or they had gold teeth. That's how they were rewarded. They were the ones who were co-opted. There was the other group that gave up. And there was one group that you couldn't do anything to them. And this group resisted everything. And they were not given shoes, and so they would go out onto the ice, step on the warm ice from the bears. Their soles would remain on that ice. They would come back and wrap the feet, and they continued to do what they needed to do. And this is the group that perplexed them. This is the group which resisted. And so he wants to find out why they did, and he says, he who has a why to live for. If you have meaning in life, you are going to survive anything. And if you think of all the indigenous traditions, if you think of all the people who have survived, if I was to ask you, what is the greatest contribution that African Americans have made to education? You say, I don't know anything that African Americans have made to education. There is an incredible contribution that African Americans make to education, and that is something called the teachable moment. Slaves could not talk to each other. They could not articulate their language. They could not be together. But every second that they got became a teachable moment. Historical memory was passed down. And today, you can dance samba in Brazil, tango in Argentina, cumbia in Colombia, merengue in the Dominican Republic, sones in Mexico, or the bomba en plena in Puerto Rico. And everywhere you will see the elements of African culture and rhythms completely alive. And how was that done? Through those teachable moments. And these people did not become victims, they became actors in transforming and resisting. And so, that's the same thing that happened in the camp. And so I want you to just to think about this in the context of what's happening here, but more importantly, why this place exists in terms of recognizing the historical memory of those that came before us, but also recognizing the importance of meaning and cultural meaning and cultural images and language and all of those things that make us whole, so that we can recover our wholeness as human beings in these circles. And so I think that's important for you to think about. I want to make just one last thing, and that's obviously about an experiment that we are working on. It's an experiment in education, and it's called the Community as a Campus. And it's something that we hope to develop. We're proposing basically taking all the schools that are feeder schools to Roberto Clemente, all the schools that exist in this community, and we're trying to harness the social capital of the community, but to create 3 institutes. One of those institutes, 2 of those I think are really relevant to this. One of them is a Youth Leadership Institute, which I would hope we're able to really work on and develop with the youth in this community. And the other is the Parent Popular Education Institute, which seeks to basically, what you're doing here today could easily be a symposium or a seminar at a university. And all that we would need to do would be to transform this into a portfolio. And most of you who may think, I don't know how to read that well, I don't know how to express myself that well, you could do it. And what we want to do is to build high schools without walls, universities without walls, for the parents of the kids in this community, so they can also excel educationally. And they can then be agents of change in the educational system. It's the only way you can do that is if you understand it. So I wanted just for you to think about it. Raul has a lot more information on this. So we are, I think, obviously, I really wanted to welcome you, and I hope you will enjoy your stay here today. Thank you.
Just so you all know, in your packet is an exam that you're going to require. Let's have another round of applause for Jose. I want to just make sure that people get acknowledged, right? Young man, you came in, or maybe you could just introduce yourself.
My name is Sean from